The auditorium lights dimmed at exactly 7:02 p.m. on graduation night at Lincoln High School in Atlanta. 300 folding chairs filled with proud parents, restless siblings, and nervous seniors in cheap black gowns. The principal, Dr. Raymond Caldwell, stood at the podium, tall, silver-haired voice booming through the cheap speakers. He had already handed out most diplomas. Now came the special recognition section scholarships, acceptances, the moment everyone waited for. Aaliyah Brooks, 18, sat in the third row from the back. She wore the same gown as everyone else, but underneath was the only nice dress she owned. A Navy thrift store find her grandmother had altered. Her cap was tilted just right, tassel on the left. Her hands were folded in her lap, hiding the tremble. She had applied to 8 Ivy League schools, Harvard, Yale, Princeton, Columbia, all on full-ride scholarships. She spent 2 years perfecting essays, SAT scores, extracurriculars, 4. She had no safety nets, no legacy connections. Just her grades, 4.0, unweighted, 5.2 weighted. Her essays about growing up in public housing with a single grandmother who cleaned houses for a living. In her dream of becoming the first in her family to graduate college, Principal Caldwell cleared his throat. Before we conclude, I have one final announcement. The room quieted. He held up a thick envelope, white, official-looking. Aaliyah's heart jumped. That was her envelope. It's the one she had submitted with her applications. She had given it to the guidance counselor weeks ago for verification. Caldwell smiled then, practiced. This year, one of our students applied to several prestigious institutions. Unfortunately, some dreams are simply not realistic. He opened the envelope slowly, pulled out the top sheet, her Harvard acceptance letter. Gasps rippled through the crowd. Then he did it. He tore the letter in half, then in quarters, then again. Confetti of her future floated to the podium. "Not for you," he said, voice calm, almost kind. "Some paths are meant for others. We must be realistic about our place." The auditorium froze. Few parents whispered. Aaliyah's grandmother, in the back row, gripped her purse so hard her knuckles whitened. Aaliyah didn't move, didn't cry, didn't scream. She just stared at the pieces on the floor. Caldwell continued, "Let this be a lesson. Hard work is admirable, but not every door is open to everyone." He turned the page to the next name on his list. But before he could speak again, the auditorium doors at the back swung open. A woman in a sharp navy suit walked into Al, poised, silver hair pulled into a low bun. Dean Eleanor Whitaker, Dean of Admissions at Harvard University. She walked straight down the center aisle. Every head turned. Caldwell faltered mid-sentence. Dean Whitaker stepped onto the stage without invitation. She picked up one of the torn pieces of paper from the floor, held it up. "Dr. Caldwell," she said, voice clear and calm, "you seem to have made a mistake." The room held its breath. She turned to the microphone. "Harvard does not send acceptance letters to be torn up on stage." She looked directly at Aaliyah. Aaliyah Brooks. Aaliyah stood slowly. Her legs felt like water. Dean Whitaker smiled, small, genuine. "Congratulations. You have been accepted to Harvard College with a full-ride scholarship. And not just Harvard. It's all 8 Ivies you applied to sent offers. We compared notes. We want you badly." The auditorium exploded. Cheers, screams, parents standing, students jumping. Aaliyah's grandmother was crying openly now. Dean Whitaker continued, "We flew here tonight because we heard rumors this might happen. We wanted to make sure you knew personally that your place is not just open, it's reserved." She turned to Principal Caldwell, and Dr. Caldwell is tearing up an acceptance letter from Harvard in front of the student who earned it. "That's not realism. That's sabotage." Caldwell's face went white. He opened his mouth. Nothing came out. Dean Whitaker addressed the crowd. "Aaliyah Brooks is not just graduating tonight. She is beginning, and we are honored to have her. She held out her hand to Aaliyah. Leah walked up the steps, slow, steady. She took the dean's hand. "Okay." Then she looked down at the torn pieces on the floor. She knelt, picked up every scrap, folded them carefully, tucked them into her pocket. She stood again, looked at the principal, quietly, but loud enough for the microphone to catch. "Thank you for the reminder. But my place was never yours to decide." The auditorium erupted again, louder this time. Aaliyah Brooks didn't cry. She smiled, small, real, and the girl they tried to erase became impossible to ignore. Aaliyah Brooks grew up in the Carver Homes projects on the southwest side of Atlanta. 2-bedroom apartment, 3rd floor, elevator broken since 2015. Her grandmother, Evelyn Brooks, raised her alone after Aaliyah's mother died in a car accident when Aaliyah was 6. Evelyn worked 6 days a week cleaning houses in Buckhead white neighborhoods where the lawns were perfect and the families never looked her in the eye when she left through the back door. Evelyn came home every night with sore knees and a small envelope of cash. She never complained. Instead, she sat Aaliyah down at the kitchen table, same table they ate on, did homework on, prayed, and said the same thing every evening. "Baby, the world will try to make you small. Don't let it. You study. You dream bigger than this building. Okay? One day, you walk out and don't look back." Aaliyah listened. She read every book in the school library, stayed after class to ask questions teachers didn't expect, joined debate club, math team, student council, tutored kids younger than her for free. Her essays were raw stories about growing up hearing gunshots at night, about her grandmother's hands cracked from bleach, about wanting to become a lawyer so no one else's family got erased by the system. She applied to Harvard on a dare from her English teacher, Ms. Ramirez. "You're Ivy material," Ms. Ramirez said. Leah laughed. "Me? From Carver Homes?" Ms. Ramirez didn't laugh back. "Especially you." Aaliyah wrote 8 essays, each one honest, each one different. She sent them with fee waivers, recommendation letters from teachers who believed in her, SAT scores in the 99th percentile. Principal Caldwell had seen the applications come through the guidance office. He called Aaliyah into his office 3 months before graduation. She sat across from him, backpack on her lap. He leaned back. "Aaliyah, these Ivy applications, they're ambitious." She nodded. "I know." He smiled, then, not warm. "But ambition without realism can be cruel. These schools look for a certain profile, legacy, connections. You understand?" Aaliyah's stomach twisted. "I earned my place." Caldwell folded his hands. "You did well here, but Harvard, Princeton, they have their own kind of kids. You might be setting yourself up for disappointment." She met his eyes. "I'm not afraid of disappointment, Dr. Caldwell. I'm afraid of not trying." He sighed. "Just be prepared." She left his office, shaking, but she didn't tell anyone. Not her grandmother. Not Ms. Ramirez. She just worked harder. Evelyn noticed the late nights, the dark circles. She made Aaliyah tea one evening. "Baby, what's eating you?" Aaliyah stared into the cup. "The principal thinks I don't belong at those schools." Evelyn set the kettle down hard. "That man don't decide your belonging. God gave you a mind sharper than his. Tea, you keep going." Aaliyah kept going. She volunteered at the community center, tutored kids in reading, led a college prep workshop for younger girls. She collected every acceptance email like treasures, saved them on a flash drive, printed backups, hid them in a shoebox under her bed. Graduation night arrived. Evelyn wore her best dress, the one she saved for church. She sat in the back, hands folded, praying silently. When Caldwell tore the letter, Evelyn stood up. She didn't shout. She just walked toward the stage, slow, steady. But before she reached the aisle, the doors opened. Dean Whitaker entered, and everything changed. The auditorium stayed frozen as Dean Whitaker took the microphone. He held the torn pieces like evidence. Aaliyah Brooks applied to Harvard through the standard process. Her application was reviewed by multiple committees. She was interviewed virtually. She was accepted unanimously. She looked at Caldwell. We did not send letters to be destroyed. We'd sent them to be celebrated. She turned to Aaliyah. You are not just accepted. You are one of our Questbridge scholars. Full ride, mentorship, everything you need to thrive. The crowd roared. Phones came out. Videos started recording. Aaliyah stood on stage, hand in Evelyn's now. She looked at Caldwell. He hadn't moved. His face was ash. Dean Whitaker addressed him directly. Dr. Caldwell, this school has produced remarkable students. Aaliyah is one of them. Tearing her future in front of her peers isn't leadership. It's cruelty. Caldwell stammered. I was trying to be realistic. Dean Whitaker's voice cut like glass. Realism without vision is just limitation. She turned back to the crowd. Aaliyah Brooks will attend Harvard in the fall. And tonight, we make sure everyone knows her place was always hers to claim. Aaliyah finally spoke, quiet, into the microphone. Thank you, Dean Whitaker. Thank you, Grandma. She looked at the audience, okay, and to everyone who told me no. Watch me say yes. The auditorium exploded against standing ovation. Evelyn pulled her close, tears on both faces. Caldwell stepped away from the podium. He didn't speak again that night. Outside, under the stadium lights, Aaliyah hugged her grandmother. Evelyn whispered, I told you. Your place ain't for nobody to decide but you. Aaliyah looked up at the sky. Stars were out rare in Atlanta. She smiled. I'm just getting started. The standing ovation lasted 3 full minutes. Parents hugged their children. Students filmed on phones. Teachers stood stunned. Principal Caldwell remained at the podium, hands gripping the edges like it was the only thing keeping him upright. His face had gone from pale to gray. Aaliyah stayed on stage with Dean Whitaker and her grandmother. Evelyn held her hands so tight it hurt in the best way. The dean spoke again into the microphone. Harvard will be in touch with the school district tomorrow. This incident will be addressed at the highest level. She looked directly at Caldwell. We do not tolerate sabotage of our admitted students, especially not in public. Caldwell tried to speak. Dean Whitaker, she cut him off gently but firmly. Not tonight. Not here. She turned back to Aaliyah. We have a car waiting outside. We'd like to speak with you and your grandmother privately. Aaliyah nodded. She looked at the crowd one more time. Then she walked off stage, head high, gown swishing, torn pieces still in her pocket. Outside, under the parking lot lights, a black SUV idled, a Harvard Crimson logo on the door. Dean Whitaker opened the back door for them. Inside, the seats were leather, warm, smelled like new car and possibility. Evelyn whispered, Lord, this is real. Aaliyah squeezed her hand. It's real, Grandma. The dean sat in front, turned to face them. Aaliyah, we've been following your story since your essays arrived. Your voice stood out. We knew you were special. What happened tonight? We had no idea until a teacher tipped us off anonymously yesterday. Aaliyah looked out the window. I didn't think he'd do it in front of everyone. Whitaker's voice softened. He underestimated you. Many will. But you've already proven them wrong. They drove to a nearby hotel conference room reserved. Inside, coffee, water, pastries. Aaliyah and Evelyn sat. Whitaker across from them. We're not just here to congratulate you, she said. We're here to protect your place. The district superintendent is already aware. Investigation starts tomorrow. Caldwell's actions were discriminatory and unethical. Evelyn spoke for the first time. He always looked at her like she didn't belong. Never said it outright, but we felt it. Whitaker nodded. We've seen this pattern before. We have resources, legal support, counseling, whatever you need. Aaliyah finally spoke. I just want to go to Harvard. I want to study law. I want to make sure no other kid gets their future torn up like that. Whitaker smiled. Okay, then that's what you'll do. The news broke overnight. Local station first. Principal tears up students' Harvard acceptance on stage. Harvard dean intervenes. By morning, national outlets had it. CNN, NBC. The rout. Black Twitter exploded. Hashtag, not for you, trending. Memes of torn paper turning into diplomas. Thousands of shares. Go Aaliyah. Comments flooding in. At Lincoln High the next day. Chaos. Students protested outside the principal's office. Teachers held emergency meeting. The superintendent arrived with district lawyers. Caldwell was placed on administrative leave pending investigation. The guidance counselor who handed him the envelope resigned in shame. Aaliyah didn't go back to school. She spent the week packing. Harvard sent a welcome packet housing assignment, course catalog, orientation schedule. She read it every night like a Bible, but the trauma lingered. Nights. She woke up seeing the pieces of paper falling, hearing Caldwell's voice. Not for you. Evelyn sat with her one night. Baby, that man didn't rip your future. He ripped his own dignity. Aaliyah whispered. It felt like he ripped me. Evelyn held her. Then we sew you back stronger. Harvard flew them to Boston for a private tour. Aaliyah walked Harvard Yard for the first time. She touched the John Harvard statue. She sat on the steps of Widener Library. Dean Whitaker met them again. You belong here, she said. Not because we're giving you charity. It's because you earned it. Aaliyah looked around. The red brick, the history, the future. I know, she said. And I'm not letting anyone tell me otherwise again. The investigation concluded in weeks. Caldwell was fired. The school board issued a formal apology to Aaliyah and her family. A new policy was created. All college acceptance letters handled only by guidance counselors. No principal review. Aaliyah's story became legend at Lincoln High. Younger girls started a club. Not for you. Watch me. They mentored each other on applications. Aaliyah spoke at the next graduation, invited by the new principal. She stood at the same podium. Looked at the same audience. She held up a framed copy of her Harvard acceptance hole, untouched. This letter was torn once, she said, but it was never broken. Neither am I, the crowd cheered. She looked at Evelyn in the front row, then at the empty seat where Caldwell used to sit. Thank you, she said, to everyone who believed, and to everyone who didn't. You gave me something better than acceptance. You gave me proof. She stepped down, diploma in hand, future wide open. Orientation week at Harvard felt like stepping into another world. Red brick buildings, older than the country itself. Students from 50 states and 100 countries. Trees that had seen centuries of ambition. Aaliyah arrived with 2 suitcases, one for clothes, one for books, and Evelyn carrying a small cooler of homemade peach cobbler. They were assigned a dorm room in Quincy House, single for Aaliyah, with a view of the Charles River. Evelyn stayed 3 days, helping unpack, making the bed with fresh sheets she bought from Target. On the last night before Evelyn flew home, they sat on the twin bed. Evelyn held Aaliyah's hands. You remember what I said back home? Aaliyah nodded. Dream bigger than the building. Evelyn smiled. Now, you in the building. Don't shrink. Aaliyah hugged her tight. I won't, Grandma. The first weeks were a whirlwind and a quiet battle. Classes started. Aaliyah took Intro to Law, African American Studies, Organic Chemistry, Pre-Med track, just in case, and expos. Professors moved fast. Reading lists were 300 pages a week. She stayed up until 3 a.m. most nights. Socially, it was harder. Freshmen formed friend groups quickly. Many had gone to prep schools. They talked about summers in Nantucket, ski trips in Aspen, trust funds. Aaliyah listened, smiled, contributed when she could, but she felt the gap. When someone asked where she summered, she said, working at the community center back home. They nodded politely. Conversation moved on. One night in the dining hall, a girl from Connecticut asked, So, how did you afford Harvard? Aaliyah answered honestly, full ride, scholarship. The girl smiled sweetly. That's amazing. Affirmative action really works, huh? Aaliyah set her fork down. I had a 4.0, 1590 SAT, and essays that got me in. Affirmative action opened the door. My work walked through it. The table went quiet. The girl blushed. Sorry, I didn't mean. Aaliyah stood. You did. She left the hall, walked to the river, sat on the grass, cried for the first time since graduation. The next day, she met her academic advisor professor, Lena Carter, no relation, black woman, tenured in African American studies. Lena read Aaliyah's file, looked up. You're carrying a lot. Aaliyah shrugged. "'Kay, I'm used to it." Lena leaned forward. You don't have to carry it alone here. It's been where you are. First gen, public housing, the not-for-you voice in your head. It gets louder in places like this. But it's like... Aaliyah's eyes filled. How do you make it stop? Lena smiled. You don't. You prove it wrong. One class, one paper, one friend at a time. Aaliyah started small. Joined the Black Students Association. Found a study group with other first-gen students. Tutored freshmen in writing. First success came midterms. She aced. Exposed professor. Wrote an exceptional voice on her paper. Class A on the first essay. Organic Chem, B+, but she went to office hours every week. She started a small club, First Gen Futures, weekly meetings in the Quincy Common Room. Talks about imposter syndrome, financial aid, family pressure. 20 students the first month, 50 by spring. One girl, Maria, Latina from Bronx, cried after the first meeting. I thought I was the only one who felt like I didn't belong. Aaliyah hugged her. You're not? Dean Whitaker checked in monthly, sent care packages, books, Harvard swag, notes. You're doing what we knew you could. Summer after freshman year, Aaliyah interned at a legal aid clinic in Boston, helped low-income families fight evictions, saw echoes of her grandmother's life. Came back junior year, more determined. She applied for a summer program at Yale Law, accepted. Then Harvard Law, early admission. Senior year, she spoke at the First Gen Futures Gala, standing room only. She held up a photo, her and Evelyn, on move-in day. This woman cleaned houses so I could read books. She never went to college, but she taught me everything I needed to get here. She looked at the crowd, mostly first gen, many black and brown faces. When someone says, not for you, they're not describing reality. They're describing their fear of you succeeding. She smiled. So let them be afraid. We've got work to do. The room stood. Applause. Hugs. Tears. Aaliyah walked off stage. Texted Evelyn a photo of the crowd. Grandma, they're all rising. Evelyn replied instantly. That's because you showed them how. Aaliyah looked around Harvard's yard. Lights on. Students laughing. Future wide open. She whispered to the night air, I'm not small anymore. And the world finally agreed. Harvard Law School accepted Aaliyah with early admission. She started at 22, younger than most, but carrying experience no one else had. The first day, she walked into Austin Hall wearing the same navy dress from graduation, now altered to fit perfectly. Evelyn had sewn a small crimson ribbon on the collar. Harvard colors, she said. So you never forget where you came from. Classes were brutal. Con law, contracts, torts. Professors cold called daily. Aaliyah raised her hand often. Her voice, clear, measured, rooted in real life, cut through the room. One professor, after a particularly sharp answer on racial bias in sentencing, said, Ms. Brooks, you speak like someone who's lived the cases, not just read them. She nodded. Her first big case came during 1L summer. She interned at the Southern Poverty Law Center in Montgomery, signed to a voting rights lawsuit. A small Georgia town redrew district lines to dilute black votes. Koya dug through archives, found old maps, voter rolls, emails, wrote the brief section on historical discrimination. The judge cited her footnotes in the ruling. Word spread. She became known as the one who brings receipts. To Aaliyah, she took on pro bono work through the law school clinic. A single mother facing eviction landlord claimed a nuisance because her son had autism meltdowns. Aaliyah argued reasonable accommodation under Fair Housing Act. She won. The mother cried in the hallway. "Thank you for seeing us." Aaliyah hugged her. "I see you, because I was seen once." That same year, the past came knocking. Lincoln High invited her back as commencement speaker. The new principal, young black woman, personally called. "We want to make it right." Aaliyah accepted. Graduation day arrived. Same auditorium. Same podium. She walked on stage in her crimson Harvard gown. The crowd, mostly the same families, stood before she spoke. She looked at the empty seat where Caldwell once sat. He had been fired, then quietly moved to a consulting job up north. "No apology, no contact," Aaliyah began. "2 years ago, in this room, my acceptance letter was torn up in front of you. Told not for you." She paused. The room was silent. "I cried that night, not because the paper was torn, because someone thought my future was theirs to destroy." She looked out. But futures don't tear. They bend. They fight. She held up her Harvard Law diploma. "I'm graduating from Harvard Law next year. I'll be clerking for a federal judge. And one day, I'll argue in front of the Supreme Court." Cheers erupted. "But I didn't do it alone," she continued. "My grandmother cleaned houses so I could study. Teachers stayed late so I could learn. A dean flew across the country to remind me I belonged." She looked at Evelyn in the front row, tears streaming. "And to the man who tore that letter, wherever you are, thank you," gasps. "Thank you for showing me what doubt looks like, because every time I wanted to quit, I remembered your voice, and I worked harder." The auditorium stood again. Thunderous applause. After, younger students rushed the stage. Girls, mostly black, brown, first gen. They asked for advice, photos, hugs. Aaliyah stayed until the last one left. She started a national network, Not for You Scholars, online community plus annual summit. Mentorship for high school students applying to elite colleges. She funded it with speaking fees and grants. First year, 200 members. Second, 2,000. She spoke at HBCUs, community colleges, public schools. Always the same message. Your place isn't given. It's claimed. One summit, a girl from Detroit stood up. "My principal said the same thing to me. It's not for you." Aaliyah walked off stage, hugged her, whispered, "Then prove him wrong." Help. She did. The girl got into Yale. Aaliyah graduated Harvard Law magna cum laude, clerked for a circuit judge. Then joined a civil rights firm. Her first big case, challenging discriminatory school funding in Georgia. She won. Years later, she argued before the Supreme Court. The case, voting rights restoration for formerly incarcerated people. She stood at the podium, looked at the justices, and thought of torn paper. She won that case too. After, she called Evelyn. "Grandma, I did it." Evelyn laughed through tears. "I never doubted you, baby. Not once." Aaliyah looked out her office window, Boston skyline. Then, back at her desk, a framed photo. Her and Evelyn on Harvard Yard. Next to it, the torn pieces of the acceptance letter, preserved in glass. She touched the frame, smiled. "Not for you." She whispered to the empty room. "Watch me." 15 years after the torn letter, Aaliyah Brooks stood on the steps of the Supreme Court. She had just argued and won her third case before the justices. This one restored voting rights to over 1.2 million formerly incarcerated Americans. The decision was unanimous. The headlines the next day, from torn acceptance to landmark victory, Aaliyah Brooks changes history again. She didn't celebrate alone. Evelyn was there, now 82, still sharp, still wearing her Sunday dress. They walked down the steps hand in hand. Photographers flashed. Porters shouted questions. Aaliyah paused at the bottom, looked up at the marble columns, then at her grandmother. You were right, she said. My place was never for anyone else to decide. Evelyn squeezed her hand. And you made sure thousands more know it too. The Not For You Scholars Network had grown to 45,000 members. High school chapters in every state, college mentorship programs, annual summits with Ivy League deans, Supreme Court clerks, CEOs. Aaliyah funded scholarships herself, over $8 million raised through speaking fees, book deals, and partnerships. Her memoir, Torn But Not Broken, became a bestseller, required reading in high schools across the country. She founded the Brooks Foundation legal clinics in underserved communities, college prep boot camps, and a national hotline for students facing Not For You discrimination. Thousands of kids got into top schools because of her. She hired many of them. Her firm now had offices in Atlanta, D.C., and Chicago, mostly staffed by first-gen, low-income, Black and brown lawyers. The symbolic moment came on the 20th anniversary of graduation night. Lincoln High invited her back not as a speaker, but for something bigger. They renamed the auditorium the Aaliyah Brooks Auditorium. A plaque outside read, in honor of the student whose future was torn up here and rebuilt it stronger. For all who follow, the unveiling ceremony was packed. Students, alumni, Evelyn in the front row. The new principal's Haim woman, who invited her years ago, pulled the cover off the plaque. Aaliyah stepped forward. She held the framed, preserved pieces of her original acceptance letter. She placed it inside a glass case beside the plaque. This case holds what was torn, she said. But the real legacy is what was rebuilt. She turned to the students. You will hear, not for you, from teachers, from counselors, from family, from yourself. She paused. When you do, remember this room, remember this plaque, remember me standing here telling you it is for you. Claim it. The students cheered. Many wore red ribbons, symbol of the Not For You movement. After the ceremony, a young girl, 15 Black, from the same projects Aaliyah grew up and approached. She held her own college application folder. My principal said I shouldn't apply to Yale. Not for you. Aaliyah knelt to her level. What's your name? Zoe. Aaliyah smiled. Zoe, I'm going to help you apply. And when you get in, you'll walk across the stage one day, okay? And you'll tell the next girl the same thing I'm telling you now. She hugged Zoe. You belong here. And everywhere else you choose. Zoe cried. Aaliyah wiped her tears. Keep that folder safe. We'll fill it together. Years later, Zoe graduated Yale Law. She clerked for Aaliyah, then argued her own Supreme Court case. Aaliyah watched from the gallery, smiled, whispered to Evelyn's empty seat she had passed peacefully 2 years earlier. She's rising, Grandma. The legacy lived on. Thousands of torn futures mended. Countless not for you turned into watch me. If you're watching this right now and someone has ever told you not for you, a teacher, a parent, a principal, your own doubts, remember Aaliyah Brooks. Remember that one torn letter didn't end her story. It started a movement. Your letter might be torn. Your path might feel blocked, but futures don't tear. They bend, they fight, they rise. So pick up the pieces, fold them carefully, put them in your pocket, and walk forward. Your auditorium moment is coming. Your dean is waiting. Your name will be called. Don't wait for permission. Don't wait for belief. Claim your place, because when they say not for you, they're not describing your limit. They're describing their fear of your power. Let them be afraid. You've got work to do. Share this if you've ever been told no. Save it if you're applying right now. Comment the name of one person who needs to hear it is for you. Tie a red ribbon around your wrist. And remember, your place was never theirs to decide. Thank you for watching. Now go claim what's yours.